Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another chit chat with me and my mum. And we haven't actually recorded these for a few weeks, so it feels like it's been a while. Mum, how you doing?
I'm actually okay, thank you very much. I mean, we have been together because obviously we had our big family holiday on the North Yorkshire coast, so that was lovely. The weather was kind, it's very sunny. So I've seen you, but just not in this way. So now I'm a little bit nervous all over again because these are really out of my comfort zone. But here we go.
You are out of practice, just a month without doing this, and then it's like starting all over again. You're starting from scratch yet again. But we've chosen 8 different conversation questions, each including a phrasal verb or some advanced vocabulary. So you are guaranteed to improve your English with this conversation. And as always, a little reminder that if you want to join my classes, there is a link in the video description. So, Mum, let's kick off. Let's get the ball rolling. And the first one is related to money, money, money. So it is, do you tend to splash out on experiences or save your money? And splash out on is to spend a lot of money, usually for pleasure. Because we also have another phrasal verb, which is fork out on, which means a very similar thing, which is spend a lot of money, but it's usually on things that you don't want to spend money on. So, for example, I could say that my washing machine broke, so I had to fork out £1,000 to fix it. While if I say that I've just booked my flights for my honeymoon, then I'm going to say we're going to splash out on an amazing trip. So, anyway, Mum, what's your answer? Do you like splashing out on experiences or saving your money?
Well, I think it depends what stage you are at in life, because obviously, if you've got a lot of bills to pay, then it might not be possible to splash out. So, luckily, because I'm old, in my 60s now and retired, we don't have a mortgage, so we can afford to sort of have the experiences. As a matter of fact, we're actually going. Your dad and I are going to an open air concert in Halifax called the Peace Hall, and the weather forecast is good. So that's a bonus. We won't get wet. It's an American song. He's a singer. He sings songs. He plays the guitar. He's called James Taylor. I'm not sure whether you've heard of him. I hadn't. I've Googled him, but Dad wanted to go and he didn't want to go alone. So we're splashing out on the concert. Now, I also, though, I feel that I think you should have experiences because, like your grandfather, I mean, he's 95, but he penny pinched. He saved all his life, and now unfortunately he's in a care home because he can't manage on his own. So I wish he had spent his money, because if you just have it in a bank, it's just a number. So now he's used his savings, he's sold his house to pay for it. So I wish he'd splashed out more and enjoyed it. But each to their own.
Exactly. Each to their own. Everybody is different. I think you have to kind of strike the right balance because, of course, you can't blow all of your money because that would be irresponsible and it could lead to bigger problems. So I think there are some people who maybe splash the cash a little bit too willingly. And then there are others who will be penny pinchers and they will be saving everything, being very, very stingy. I do try to strike a good balance. I try to make sure that I always save money as much as I can, but whilst having fun as well. So if there is a bargain to be had, I'm going to try and find it. If I can save a little bit extra money, I'm going to make an effort to do that. But, there is a time and a place for everything. So there will be moments when you think, who cares what it costs? Let's go. This is a once in a lifetime experience. And I think that applies in particular when it comes to holidays. If you're going on a holiday, you're going traveling, then you don't want to be pinching the pennies and trying to save lots of money. So there has to be a balance. You can't splash out too much, but you can't just save all your money either. That's what I would say. A very, very diplomatic response. Perfect. Now let's continue with the next question. And another phrasal verb. It is there anything you wish you had stuck with? And a reminder to stick with something is to continue doing something. So, in my case, I would say that, well, I'm getting flashbacks because just last week I was kayaking with my friends, and one of my best mates organized this kind of activity of going kayaking. And it was bringing back all of these memories of when I used to go kayaking on some kind of rapids at local rivers. And we sometimes went traveling to different competitions as well to compete in these kayaking events. And I think I got a little bit scared and it was a bit of a pain to go traveling around at the weekend to compete in these events. But when I was kayaking last weekend, I was thinking, this is nice. Maybe I should have stuck with it. Maybe I should have continued kayaking for longer because I enjoy it and I enjoy being on a river in a little boat and rowing away. So that had been my response. What about yours, Mom?
Well, I used to play the guitar when I was younger. I wasn't very good, but I think as I became a teenager, there were just other things going on. So I didn't give it the time and I stopped practicing. So then I wasn't as good. And so then it became hard work. And I just thought, I don't know who needs to play the guitar, but now I wish I'd continued. And another thing which I wish I'd stuck with is that obviously pre-COVID, I was doing an evening class in Spanish, and I really enjoyed it. And I was sort of coming on, not in leaps and bounds, but I was progressing nicely. And then obviously it went, so it was online, and I just wasn't as bothered. But then recently, I've done a 6 month refresher course, and so basically, I've been going to the local college, and I've realized that if I'd stuck with it, I would be so much better now because I feel I've learned more in this last 6 months, speaking to people in person. So, yeah, two slight regrets, but nothing major.
It is what it is. It is what it is. And I guess people learn from their mistakes as well to try and correct them in the future. So now you are realizing that maybe you should have stuck with it. So as a result, you are more motivated to continue doing it at the moment. So you're learning from your mistake. I say mistake. Lovely. And you used a nice expression as well, which is to come on leaps and bounds. If somebody comes on leaps and bounds, it means that they improve dramatically. They improve a lot. If you've been going to some kind of classes and in 6 months you've made huge progression, your teacher might say, "Oh, well done. You've come on
Mhm.
leaps and bounds. You've improved so much." Lovely. Now, how about the next one? Mum, I'll ask you this one straight away. So, do you think first impressions hold much weight? And to hold weight is to have importance, have significance. So, what would you say?
Definitely. They definitely do. But I also feel that the first impressions can be misleading. Your dad is a prime example because he's quite reserved. He's not overly friendly when he first meets somebody. So people might perceive that, I'm not sure about him. He doesn't join in. He's a bit serious. But when you get to know him, he's a really nice guy. So I think some people can give a really great first impression. You think, oh, they're lovely. But then as time goes on, you think, well, maybe they're a bit self centered. Maybe they're sort of talking a little bit about too much about themselves or a little bit shallow. So I think, yes, first impressions count. I mean, if somebody's personal hygiene wasn't great, then I'd be thinking, hmm. But generally speaking, I like to think that I give people a chance. I like to get to know people first. And really it's about seeing if you don't have to have everything in common, but I think it's quite useful to have the same values, and You only find that out as you get to know people. So it's a good start, but it's not always, it doesn't always follow that that person will be your new Bezzy, your new best friend. So yeah. What about you, Lewis?
Your busy mate, your best mate. I mean, there is this saying which translates to lots of different languages, and it is don't judge a book by its cover. So, of course, your first impression does have an impact on you, regardless of whether you want it to or not. We can try and think like, okay, no prejudice, not going to judge this person, but I think it's human nature. I think it's natural. And then you can tell yourself, like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be too quick to judge. I should give them the benefit of the doubt and get to know them a little bit more. I can't write off this person immediately. And, well, I agree that first impressions do count, but somebody can prove you wrong. So maybe the first time you meet someone, you don't get on at all. And you think, oh, I don't want to meet up with this person again, or I hope I don't see him again. But then the second time you see them, you might actually sit down in a different environment and get to know them deeper and find out things that you had no idea. So I think it's like in baseball, you have three strikes and then you're out. So if you don't get along very well the first time, all right, it's not ideal, but give them another couple of opportunities. If at the second time you're still having the same impression, that's when you're going to start thinking about maybe burning bridges and ending this relationship. And if three times you're not enjoying being with this person, then fair enough. You've given them time, you've given them the benefit of the doubt, and they have proved you right. So, yeah, first impressions do usually hold weight, but I think you've got to give people a bit of a chance before you completely write them off.
Meet people with an open mind.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And it's the same expression that I use sometimes when we have these conversations that treat others how you expect to be treated. So maybe the first time people meet me, they might think, oh, that Lewis guy, he's horrible. He's unbearable. He's so annoying. And maybe I might have been one time, but then I doubt I will be three times in a row. Or at least that's what I want to think. Awesome. And just going over a couple of adjectives you used, you said self centered. So a self centered person only focuses on themselves. It's kind of like a selfish person or maybe an egotistical person. And then just after that, you said shallow. And shallow has a couple of meanings. And it's interesting again because last weekend, when I was kayaking with my friends, we were saying, it's not deep at all. Like, look at the water. You can see the bottom. You can almost touch it. It's not deep at all. And then I remember I said, yeah, it's so shallow. And then my Spanish friend was like, shallow? What does that mean? And he speaks very good English, but that was one word that was missing, which I think he could kind of get the gist of, but he like wanted to confirm it with me. So shallow, when speaking about the water, is not deep. It's the opposite of deep. So then a shallow person is someone who is very basic and they only focus on appearances, for example. There is a famous film called Shallow Hal, which is about a guy who was single because he only paid attention to other people's image and never got to know the person deep inside. So you can have a shallow person and you can have shallow water. Cool. Now, next question. What is a guilty pleasure that you're happy to admit to? Maybe there are guilty pleasures that we want to keep to ourselves. I don't know. But what is one that you are more than happy to admit to?
Okay, well, this one's food based. I like really nice food. I like really good quality food. But actually, you can't beat a crisp sandwich, which everybody be thinking, oh, that's awful. It's carb on carb. But honestly, if you're in the right mood for something and you might just fancy it, then it's basically fresh white bread, butter, take a packet of crisps, preferably cheese and onion, crunch it up, open it, layer it on, put the bread and butter on top, and dig in and eat it. And it's just really nice. Yeah, so that's a foodie one. Now, I do have a friend, and she's very intelligent. She has a serious job. So obviously she's very focused during the week. But she said we were talking about series, and she said I like a bit of Love Island. She said it's my guilty pleasure, and I think it's just she just wanted something that was away from everything she does, which is very serious, quite high powered. So we all have a guilty pleasure. I think it's just yeah. What's yours? Do
I
you
mean,
have
I have quite a lot. I have quite a lot for sure. Talking about food, first, I'm going to respond to what you said about a crisp sandwich, which is quite typical. It's quite typically English. Personally, I've never been that much of a fan of it. I've never really saw like the interest in getting a packet of crisps and then, as you said, scrunching it up into smaller pieces and then lathering some butter on white bread. Like it never really appealed to me, but I know quite a lot of people do like it. And now there is this kind of trendy thing online where people make soggy Spanish crisps, which is when you open a pack of crisps and then you put
it?
things on top of it. So you put some olives, you put some cheese, you put maybe some ham, maybe some kind of like peppers, and you make soggy crisps to have different flavors. And this is pretty nice. I quite like it. But crisp sandwiches, not for me, but each to their own, as we said. My guilty pleasure when it comes to food is a pot noodle. So a pot noodle is the typical thing where sometimes you get it from like an Asian supermarket if it's a higher quality one, or you get the typical brand, which is popular in the UK, which is called pot noodle. And it is one little pot, and then you fill it up with boiling water. You wait a few minutes until the noodles kind of cook and you've got a little bit of a sauce. And I don't know why, but when I'm a bit hungover and I've already had a big lunch. Maybe I don't want to pig out for dinner. So I sometimes make myself some kind of pot noodle. I know it's rubbish. I know there's zero nutritional value, but from time to time, I will dig in and tuck into it. Then my other guilty pleasure is pretty much the same as your friend, because I will openly admit that I get quite addicted to certain Love is Blind, Love Island, these rubbish TV reality dating shows that I know most of it is set up and they're not actually there to meet the love of their lives. But it can be something easy to just put on in the background whilst you're scrolling up and down on your phone. So I don't watch it all the time, but if somebody else is suggesting to watch it, I'm all for it. Excellent. Now, how about the next question? We've got a few more, and this one makes me think about loved ones. So, the question is, do you enjoy striking up conversations with strangers? And strike up a conversation is, of course, a phrasal verb and a specific collocation. So, strike up and conversation, they're like best mates, they go well together. But it's just a simple way of saying starting a conversation, starting a chat. So, Mum, do you enjoy striking up conversations with strangers?
Not really. I find that I'm a bit out of my comfort zone. So it's just like when I restarted the Spanish lessons, I was quite apprehensive, quite nervous about meeting strangers and starting to talk to them. Once I get going, I'm fine. And randomly, sometimes people will just speak to me in the street where I have that sort of face. I don't know. And obviously, I'll answer back and be friendly, but I don't tend to initiate a conversation with somebody I don't know, apart from just a sort of a greeting. But my grandmother, I mean, quite sad really that when granddad died, she was quite lonely. And in the UK, when you're a pensioner, you get a free bus pass. So she used to literally get on a bus and just go anywhere on the bus with the sole purpose of striking up a conversation with a stranger. And I think she enjoyed it. And I'm sure people were very kind to her. She also used to come to our house every Saturday, and it was on something called an access bus because she had limited mobility, and was elderly. And I think she probably told everybody on the bus all my business. I think knew everything about us, what I like to eat, what I did, and I just. But hey, that was her way of beating the loneliness. So yes, I had no problem with it at all. Yeah. I'm sure it wasn't interesting from their point of view, learning all about me and you and your sister and stuff, but I think she was proud too, and she just wanted to sort of talk about us. So, but yeah, I tend to be a little bit more reserved. What? Well, go on, your turn.
I mean, I guess this is what my granddad kind of inherited from her then. It must run in the family because I was thinking as soon as I read this question, like, it's like granddad. Because he would go and sit on a bench looking out at the sea, and then you'd usually have someone a little bit more elderly or equally elderly as him sit next to him, and then they'd just, look at each other as like, all right, beautiful day, isn't it? And then they'll just strike up a conversation and talk for hours on end. And I don't know if it's something that comes as you get older, that then you kind of feel like you need more company and you want to just have a little chin wag, have a little chat. I'm not sure. When I get to that age, we will see. Because in my case, I'm like you. I take after you in this regard because I'm always in a bit of a rush or I'm always doing my own things. So maybe it's the wrong perspective to have, but I feel like it's a bit of a waste of time to go and strike up a conversation with a randomer, with a stranger. Of course, if you're on holiday and you've got nothing else to do, maybe you're watching something on TV, some sports, then maybe I might have a few comments with people around me to offer my opinion because there's a specific thing that's going on and a specific thing that we can talk about. So if I'm watching the Olympics or football, rugby, and I've got random people next to me, I was like, oh, that was a clear foul. Like, can you believe this? So I might comment on these things, but I wouldn't just strike up a random conversation with a randomer. But maybe I should. Maybe I should make a point of it, of trying to get to know strangers, because, if you do, it might be something memorable for both parties. I don't know. Let us know in the comments. Are you the kind of person who will strike up a conversation with people you don't know? Or, like us, do you prefer to be a bit more reserved and keep yourself to yourself? So I'd be interested to read the comments. Now, what about this one? I think this might be the penultimate one. Let's see. And it's a phrasal verb that I teach quite a lot in class. So the question is there a habit you're trying to cut down on? And cut down on is the same as cut back on as well, which is to reduce, to do something less. So, Mum, is there a habit that you're trying to cut down on?
Um, well, I don't have any really bad habits. I've never smoked. I only really sort of drink socially when I'm out. But I do find that if we are watching television, Dad and I, and I've had my tea, I'm not hungry, but I go to the cupboard and I get a snack and I just mindlessly eat while I'm watching, and I don't need the food. I think it's just whether it's just it's just part of the package of, yeah, we'll watch this movie or this film, and I'll just get some nuts or some crisps, not a sandwich. But maybe I just need to alter the type of snack so that it's fruit. Sometimes we do have like grapes or something. So I'll maybe cut down on the snacking. And then the other thing is I am a worrier. In an ideal world, I would like to worry less about things that might happen because sometimes those things never happen. And I've wasted emotions on worrying about something. So if I could try and be a bit more laid back, a bit less of a worrier, when you're obviously living in Spain or Brussels, I'm not worrying when you're out. When you come over here and you're out and it gets late, I'm thinking, oh, I hope he's okay. And so maybe that's just a mum thing. So I will try and worry less and also eat less. I have a dress to fit into later on in the year that is really special. So I want to make sure I look nice in it. Well, the dress isn't special, but the occasion is.
I'm sure the dress is special as well, for sure. And I'm sure you'll fit into it and look beautiful. Absolutely. But no, in my case, I mean, I haven't got that many really bad habits, to be honest. You could argue that maybe at the weekend I should cut down on the amount of beer I drink at times, because if I'm out with my friends, and I was speaking about this with a few other friends as well, that if you're out in a bar or a pub, I always feel like I need something to hold on to. And that thing that I need to hold on to is a drink. And I don't know why, but I feel like I should keep ordering if I finish my drink. So that's something that I'm not in any rush to cut down on. Like, it's not an issue because I only do it once a week when I'm out at the weekend, but that's one option. Another option could be the typical thing that I think everybody will probably agree with me on, which is the amount you scroll up and down and check your phone. So I definitely think I should cut down on this because there are times when my brain isn't thinking, but I'm still scrolling. And I know that's definitely a bad habit. And other than that, today I'm slightly sleepy. And when I feel a little bit tired, I will kind of double my consumption of caffeine. So today I've had 4 little espressos and they're only small, but I think four is a little bit too much. So I should probably cut down on the amount of caffeine as well. You know, nobody's perfect.
You're close. You're close.
So, okay, I've just counted. We've got 2 more. And this next one is one that we definitely agree on. And it is, have you ever chickened out of doing something? And to chicken out of doing something is to be too scared so you don't end up doing something. And we've mentioned on previous chit chats that both of us are chickens, both of us are wusses. So there are for sure going to be things that we have chickened out on. Mum, what comes to mind first?
Well, I know my limitations, Lewis, so I tend not to put myself forward for something which I know I really, really don't want to do. So I hate flying. It makes me very nervous. So if somebody suggested skydiving, then it's just a no. So I wouldn't even need to chicken out because I wouldn't even say yes in the first place. Now, I do remember many, many years ago when you were very small and we were in Australia and we visited a wildlife sanctuary. And part of it was that there was a very, very large snake. And they sort of said, would you like to hold the snake? And obviously, I really didn't want to hold the snake. But because you and your sister were there, I was like, yes, okay, I'll hold the snake. And the guy was there, and I had a bit here and here. And I was looking like this because it had the head. Now, I obviously didn't want to give you the fear of snakes. So I did it. I mean, looking back now, obviously it's like over 30 years ago, I wouldn't even do that because I'd be more worried about stressing the snake, even though I had anxiety. But I think we're maybe more aware of things now. So it's probably not something that's even offered. But at the time, it was just like, would you like to hold the snake? And I was just like, uh, okay. I have a photo to prove it, actually.
Uh-huh.
Yes. So yeah, sometimes it's just proving you're not scared in front of little ones so that you don't pass your fears on to them. I'm not sure that if you would chicken out of anything, would you?
I mean, I reckon that would be the limit for me. That a similar thing happened to me when I went to Morocco, and I was walking through one of these main squares, and sometimes there are people who would approach you, and they'd get quite close to you. And there was one of them who had a little thin snake as well, and he had a monkey on his shoulder as well. And this is clearly not good. This shouldn't happen. They should be in the wild. I just want to make that clear. But he got close, and I kind of didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to react. So I kind of froze a little bit. And I wasn't scared because of the snake, but I felt just completely out of my comfort zone. It's like, just leave me alone. Personal space, please. And then he kind of put a little snake on me. And I was like, what do I do now? So I think if I know that the snake is 100% harmless, then I wouldn't chicken out of this situation that you said, which I imagine was when we were in Australia, right?
That's right, yeah.
But I mean, there are other things that I think I would chicken out on. Mentioned skydiving, bungee jumping, even lots of rides, roller coasters, a theme park. If I go to a theme park, which nowadays I think I'm old enough to recognize and acknowledge that I don't like it. So what's the point in paying for the ticket? But if I went and then somebody was kind of peer pressuring me into doing it, I'd be like, I know I should do it. I know it's going to be safe, but it's going to be horrible. So then my fear might prevail. And then I might be like, enjoy. I'll be waiting for you and taking photos, but I'm out. I'm chickening out. So yeah, there are times when I wish I had taken after Dad a little bit more in these things because he's a lot more of a daredevil. He
Mm.
doesn't get scared or panic with any of these things. But I guess Mum, I've taken after you.
Again, yeah. Well, Dad mentioned he's going to take up rock climbing again. He's been going to a wall, which is indoors. What now he's wanting to go out and do some actual sort of cliffs, and I'm like, no. But hey, anyway,
He's old enough to make his own decisions.
he is. He is.
Now, this is the final question. Then I'll do a little recap of some of these words and phrases. So, what's something people often take for granted? And by the way, take for granted is like to not appreciate something that you have. You're not really grateful of what you have. And another question that some students ask me is, Lewis, is it often or is it often? Do we pronounce the T or not? And there are different accents where it's correct to say often and often. So ultimately, it's up to you. Whichever one sounds more natural for you, you go with often or you go with often. Personally, I say often a lot more than I say often. So maybe that's the better option. But now back to the question. What's something people often take for granted? Mark?
Well, I think health. I guess as I'm in my 60s now and Dad's approaching his late 60s, that you do sort of perhaps realize that you have taken your health very much for granted and you just kind of assume that you'll always be well. I mean, I know obviously that won't happen, but so yeah, I think that there is an expression that says tomorrow is not a given. So I think that you need to sort of do things now while you're fit and able. Maybe not rock climbing, but and definitely me not rock climbing. I wouldn't do that. But I think, yes, people take the health for granted. You just think, when I've retired, I'll do this, or when I've paid for this, then we'll go there. So maybe. Maybe we're coming full circle now to about splashing out on things, but perhaps, you should just think, will there be a tomorrow? I don't mean that in a morbid way, but will I be able to do that in a few years' time? Let's just sort of do it now. And another thing is, my mum, her eyesight was very poor as she got older, so people tend to just assume that you'll always be able to see. So I now sort of take quite good care of my eyesight and the vitamins and things that you can do for it. So I just think seize the moment. Don't take anything for granted. You might not get a second chance, so just do it. That sounds like some well-known catchphrase, Lewis,
I
from
know.
some and but unintentional.
It
Back
sounds
to you, my love.
fantastic. No, I think health is the major thing. I think we all take our health for granted. And I mean, what are you going to do? It's not like you wake up every day and say, thank you, my hands work. Thank you, my legs work. Thank you that I'm okay. So life happens. We're all busy. It doesn't give us a lot of time to take things for granted. Well, to appreciate things, and we end up taking them for granted. But it's true that as soon as you, I don't know, suffer any kind of injury, as soon as you're limping, maybe, if you can't move your arms in the same way, if you have neck pain or back pain, then that's when you realize and you're like, oh, this didn't happen to me a week ago. This didn't happen to me a year ago. It's like, I didn't know how well I lived before this happened. So I think we should be a little bit grateful from time to time and think like, I'm healthy, I'm good, touch wood, that stays the same forever. But health is the big thing that people take for granted. And the other, I think, is the countries where we live. Because
Mhm.
if you are lucky enough to live in a peaceful country where there isn't a lot of crime and you're able to grow as a person and get good education, then it gives you a great platform in life to have a healthy and happy life. So even if I sometimes complain about little things, little tiny things in the UK, or tiny things in Belgium, tiny things in Spain, I know that overall, these three countries are amazing. And anybody who is living in any of these three countries should maybe think, like, okay, we've got it pretty good here. So we shouldn't take for granted where we are living. So that's probably what I'd say. Lovely. Now,
Look,
um, Mum, before I do a little recap of some of these words, are you excited for the concert tonight?
I am. I am. Yes, it'll be a nice change. It's yeah, I've been before. I went to see a group called Madness with some girlfriends, so that was lovely. They were famous probably 14 years ago, maybe. Um, it was fun because everybody was like sort of middle aged or older, and they were trying to dance like they were still in their 20s. Whereas this one, I think this man is an older man, but he's got a really good backing as well. And I'm going for Dad. Dad will enjoy it, so I will enjoy it too. Yes, thank you. Yes.
Young love, eh? Young love.
We've only been together 44 years. Hey.
To many more, to many more. Now, let me go over a few phrases. First, start from scratch. If you start from scratch, you start from the beginning, from zero. If you splash out on something, you spend money, but kind of happily. Whereas if you fork out on something, you spend money almost against your will. And also related to money, a penny pincher, someone who pinches the pennies, is someone who's very, very stingy. If you're studying and you are coming on leaps and bounds, you are really progressing very quickly. If you stick with something, you continue with it. If something holds weight, it has and retains significance. A self centered person only cares about themselves, and a shallow person is very superficial. That was the synonym I was looking for earlier. And a shallow lake would be one that is not deep at all. Then, a great tip and saying in life is don't judge a book by its cover. You shouldn't judge people on first impressions. And speaking about crisp, crisp sandwiches and our guilty pleasures, one was mentioning scrunching up the packet of crisps. And you can also scrunch up a piece of paper if you kind of really do this action. Then, if you're really hungry and you want to start eating enthusiastically, you dig in or you tuck in. And you can say it to everybody else at the dinner table. You say, okay, food's ready, dig in, tuck in. And then the final one I wrote down, maybe there were more, was chicken out. So both of us, as we've clarified many times, we are chickens. So if we agree to do something a little bit daring, a little bit dangerous, then we would probably end up chickening out. It is what it is. Excellent. So, Mum, thank you so much.
You're very welcome, darling.
It
And I'll
is a
see.
pleasure, as always, to catch up, have a chat. And everybody else, I hope you enjoyed it. If so, please leave a like, and we'll be back in a few weeks. So, thanks, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.